Tuesdays during the months of June and July right here on Locked On Buckeyes are all about breaking down different positions on the Ohio State football team. Today, it's all about the running backs. And as I think about the running backs on the team, I think about how Miyan Williams and TreVeyon Henderson will give opposing defenses problems during the upcoming college football season.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Buckeye fans? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Buckeyes, part of Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, also the host of the Jay Stevens Podcast. It is Tuesday, June 14th in the year 2022, and today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. I would also like to thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen or first watch of every single day. Last year, during TreVeyon Henderson's freshman year at Ohio State, we got to see what this young man could do during his inaugural year or first year playing college football. That's just a glimpse. I do believe there are bigger plays and more plays to come, more big plays to come during the upcoming season. Last year, 210 touches, offensive touches, over 1,500 yards from scrimmage, 19 total touchdowns. If we want to go and just use the rushes, 183 carries, 1,248 rushing yards, 6.8 yards per carry, and 15 touchdowns. This young man possesses so many skills that will give teams fits. If he was the only offensive threat from the backfield, but when you add in what Miyan Williams brings to the table at 5'8", 225 pounds, Miyan Williams, 71 carries, only played in 10 games, but 71 carries, 508 rushing yards, 7.2 yards a pop, and 3 touchdowns of his own. These two gentlemen put together a two-headed monster that I do believe will give every team fits. We all talk about how Ohio State's offense is lethal. It's potent. It's an offense that's going to give a lot of people problems, and people are going to have a hard time trying to slow them down. But let's think about something that happened last year when we think about the team and how Ryan Day wants to average 250 through the air and 250 on the ground. Was that goal accomplished last year? Was it the running backs? Will the running backs be better this year to help accomplish that goal? Well, last year, the goal was not accomplished. We all marvel at what C.J. Stroud did. The offense, via the passing attack, averaged 380 passing yards per game, while the running game only averaged 180.8 rushing yards per game. Now, 5.6 yards a pop is amazing. I won't diminish that. Yards per carry is amazing. I won't diminish that feat or that stat or anything like that. Yes, Ohio State they averaged 561.7 yards per game. There are so many numbers to describe how the offense played, how good it was last year, how it was not an average offense. But the goal was not accomplished. If the goal is to average 250 on the ground, 250 through the air, we clearly see there's a 70-yard gap from the rushing game, a deficit from reaching said goal. So how can that happen? I think Ryan Day, Tony Alford will probably utilize these two gentlemen. But why? Why use them both? Well, TreVeyon Henderson, he possesses something that's a little special. He is the total package, from the speed that he possesses, from his ability to catch the ball out of the backfield, from his vision, getting a better feel on the field as well. I mean, a lot of times running backs, they recently listened to an interview with Eric Dickerson, and he talked about how sometimes you don't see the defender, you feel the defender, and that difference between seeing and feeling, you feeling him, that could be a first down. You needing to see him, that could be a 3 or 4 yard gain. There is a fine line between these running backs about the see and the feel, and I do believe TreVeyon Henderson's going to have a better feel, not just with his body in the field, but also just the feel of where players are, where how blocks are going to open up, when they'll open up, who's going to be right there in front of him. I believe TreVeyon Henderson is going to be better this year, not just because of not just because I am making a statement. No, I'm not going to be that guy to just make a statement and hope it sticks out there. No, that's not me. I firmly believe TreVeyon Henderson will be one of the better running backs in the country this year, and he might even eclipse 15 to 1,800 rushing yards this year. Now, when you add in Miyan Williams, now TreVeyon Henderson has speed. His vision is going to be better. He has the blocking ability in the hands to be a 3-down back, which is amazing. But Miyan Williams is going to be kind of like that power back, the guy to come in, just ram you. But he's not just going to be able to ram you. We remember the Minnesota game where he had a long touchdown run. I want to say it was like 70 yards. I mean, it was long. It was at least 60. And he was gone. Now you may say, Jay, Minnesota's not a good team. They have speed out there. They're a Big Ten football team. They're competing. They do. PJ Fleck, I won't say PJ Tucker. Would have been a wrong coach mixing two names together. PJ Fleck does a phenomenal job of recruiting in Minnesota. So I'm not going to say that they're playing a slow team. That guy got the ball. That young man got the ball, and he skedaddled out of here. Now, Miyan Williams has a little ability of his own to be able to be good with his escapability aspect. Now, it's not being able to skedaddle, getting away from you, but he's able to hit you, feel you, get off of you, bounce off tacklers, and continue moving upfield. No east-west nonsense. Continue moving up the field. When you have the ability to have two different running backs that have different skill sets, but those skill sets mesh so well, I do believe, guys, one, Ohio State's goal of 250 through the ground, 250 through the air is going to be accomplished this year. In a couple weeks, we're going to discuss why I think that the goal will happen this year and why it doesn't really have a lot to do. It has a lot to do with the running backs, but it has more to do with another position group on the offense. You might know where I'm going. We'll discuss that in a few weeks. Williams, Henderson, this two-headed monster. I believe Henderson's ability to even stay healthy in the times that he was knocked out of games due to different things happening, I think he'll stay healthy. And this team together, my goodness, these two guys, they're going to give teams problems in the fall. They'll give teams problems. But I've also heard about conversation that the Buckeyes might use 3 running backs in the fall. Should they do that? Stick around. I'll answer that question next. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. Find all of the latest sports developments, news, and odds, including this year's NBA Finals matchup, the Stanley Cup Finals, Major League Baseball, and, of course, all the latest fighting news from MMA and UFC to boxing. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. The Ultimate NBA Mock Draft starts June 16th with over 50 insiders. Nothing equals the Ultimate NBA Mock Draft. The Locked On NBA Big Board Draft experts plus the Odyssey insiders. First pick is June 16th. Search Ultimate NBA Mock Draft and follow now so you don't miss a pick. Should the Ohio State Buckeyes use 3 running backs in the fall? Well, let's look at who else is here we did not touch on in the first segment of the show. We have TreVeyon Henderson, sitting at 5'10", 215. He is a sophomore. Miyan Williams is technically a sophomore because the 2020 season did not count as a year of eligibility. 5'8", 225. RB1 is Henderson. RB2 is Miyan Williams. Then there are 3 other running backs on the roster. You have Evan Pryor, 5'10", 198 pounds, a redshirt freshman. You have Caden Saunders, a sophomore, 5'10", 190. And then you have freshman Dallin Hayden, 5'11", 195. So there are 3 other running backs that are left over on this roster that are not RB1 or RB2 that I don't believe will get a lot of the touches, or the top 2 running backs to be off the bench or on the field. Should the Buckeyes use 3 running backs? we get to see a glimpse of Caden Saunders in the spring game and a glimpse of Evan Pryor in the spring game. I think they both looked pretty good. I firmly think that the Buckeyes have a little bit of a look, not a problem, but they have a little glimpse of what can come in the future. Let's always remember it's the spring game. It's a practice. It's not a real game. It's a real game setting, but it's not a real game setting, if you know what I mean. I would push back on anybody that says the Buckeyes should use 3 running backs. I'm going to ask you why. Is it because you need to? Is it because you want to prevent a player from hitting the transfer portal? Why? Why do you think the Buckeyes need to use 3 running backs? Is Evan Pryor talented? Absolutely. Saunders is too. Hayden is too. I mean, all these guys are talented. They all bring something different to the table. So what's your reasoning for trying to use 3 running backs? Is it because you want to maximize the talent? Great. How about you use 4 or 5 wide receivers to maximize the talent? I mean, these are all legitimate thoughts when you think about who is going to be on the field and maximizing talent. My reason for not doing this, I think there's a place and there's a time you can use 3 running backs. But I don't think this team is a team that needs or should use 3 running backs. We saw a little bit of the breakdown of the yards last segment for the running backs, but what were the breakdown for the touches and the carries? Well, TreVeyon Henderson played in 13 games, had 183 carries last year. Second on the team in carries was Miyan Williams with 71. Master Teague only played 7 games, had 67 carries of his own. But if you remember, there were times that Master Teague was on the field when I don't think he should have been. There were times that the running back rotation, a little puzzling to me, but I don't think that was the proper thing to do. I think what we saw was that when Henderson and Williams can spell off of each other and rotate series and get into a groove, adding a third back into the mix is not always the wisest thing, because as you know, when I talked about recently on Locked On Knicks while talking about Malachi Branham, I talked about how recently I stumbled upon a podcast episode of Locked On Buckeyes right here. When I went back to my early days of hosting the podcast, and I was like, I cringed a little bit. I was a little uneasy with how I sounded. Now, different microphone than this one. Also, there were I've gotten better as a broadcaster, as a podcaster during that time period between this time and then. And so there's a lot of growth that's happened, but over time, you get stronger, you get better, you get more acquainted with yourself, and you know, if I see this from the defense, here's how I respond. If I see this as a topic, here's how I go about portraying my thought about said topic. And I think that goes hand in hand with what we have right here with this conversation. Should the Buckeyes use 3 running backs? I won't deny that Evan Pryor will get on the field in the future, consistently get on the field in the future if he stays at Ohio State. I would not deny that. But I think if you have a good running back or an elite running back like TreVeyon Henderson, I think trying to use a 3-headed monster in that way is not the wisest thing. Now, you can use 3 running backs. You see a lot of NFL teams use 3 running backs. Georgia, the Bulldogs, has used 3 running backs. So there is a time and a place you can do it. But I don't think you would mess up the groove that Henderson or Williams will get in throughout this year. There will be sometimes Miyan Williams will have more carries. There will be sometimes TreVeyon Henderson will have more carries. Sometimes the team last year, they were trying to force 3 running backs in there when you shouldn't have done that. It's a very tricky thing. And as a former player myself, I am always hesitant about trying to throw different things in there just to throw them in there. I'd be very, very careful, very, very careful to push a 3rd running back consistently. Let's say Henderson gets 15 carries, and then you get Williams with 11. I'm just throwing numbers out there. And then you have somebody else with 5. Possibly, but how does that affect the passing game? All of these things go hand in hand. We saw the passing game flourish last year with a 1,200-yard rusher, a 500-yard rusher as well. I think we'll see more the second guy will get more 600 to 700 rushing yards, and then you'll have TreVeyon Henderson, 15 to 1,800 rushing yards, upping that total as a carrier, as a ball carrier. I just would not do 3 running backs. I would not. I wouldn't. Now, I do think Evan Pryor is going to be the first back off the bench. Let's say in mop-up duty, or there's a big lead against, let's put Toledo, I think Ohio State plays earlier in the year. Yeah, I do think. What are you going to do? Put him in against Rutgers? Absolutely. Maryland? Yeah, go ahead and do it. Mop-up duty is great. It's a great time for these young backs, these young players to get some run. I do think Pryor, Saunders, and Hayden will probably see time. Unless Dallin Hayden ends up redshirting, that's always an option, being an incoming freshman. A lot of times that's to build up your strength and to build up your muscle. I don't think Dallin Hayden's coming in as someone that, even though he's enrolling in the summer, he's not coming in as someone that does not have a body that is ready. Excuse me. He's not coming in as someone that has a body that's not ready for this level of college football. I have seen him play high school football numerous times, seen numerous clips on the YouTube. He is not built like your average youngster. He's not built like your average football running back, high school football running back. I think he will do just fine at the next level. Jay, my opinion, do not use 3 running backs. Run with the 2 you got. They kill it. They do a phenomenal job. And as I mentioned earlier, if you just continue to just stick to the plan, 1, you'll give defenses problems. 2, you will also accomplish the goal you want to accomplish, which is 250 through the ground, 250 through the air, 250 on the ground. That's the goal. It can be accomplished with a 2-headed monster. Trying to add a 3rd back into the mix might not go the way you want it to go. One more segment to go. One more little topic about the running backs. We did it last week looking at unit rankings via Athlon Sports College Football Preview Magazine. Look at the Big Ten rankings for the running backs. Look at the national rankings for the running backs. You will see a trend. These 2 guys are talented, but how do they stack up against the rest of the country, the rest of the conference? Stick around. We'll discuss that next. The Big Ten Football Conference is littered, absolutely littered with talent all over the field. You have talented quarterbacks, and you have talented running backs as well. Ohio State, I'm not going to go 10 through 1 or 14 through 1. Not going to waste your time with that because we all know how talented these guys are. I could have given you a little breakdown as far as a little sneak peek as far as how this will break down. But that wouldn't be any fun 5 through 1. How do these running backs, these 2 running backs, the entire unit? I say 2, but is it the entire unit? How does it stack up? The running back unit stack up with other running back units in the Big Ten Conference. Number 5, Penn State and Indy Lions. Kevon Lee and Devin Ford are the top 2 backs over there in Happy Valley. College Station is in Texas. Minnesota's number 4 is Mo Ibrahim and Trey Potts. Mo Ibrahim, I hope he's healthy, hope he's back. He is the young man that torched the Buckeyes in week 1. And honestly, the Buckeyes were really on the verge of losing that game week 1 if he did not get hurt. Number 3, the Michigan Wolverines. Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards. Blake Corum got hurt last year, but he's looking to have a phenomenal year this year for the Wolverines. Wisconsin, number 2, Braylon Allen, Ches Malusi. Braylon Allen is going to be competing with TreVeyon Henderson to be the number 1 back in the Big Ten and the country over the next, in the Big Ten this year. Right now, as a unit, Wisconsin is a step behind the Buckeyes. At number 1 is your Ohio State Buckeyes. Henderson, TreVeyon Henderson, and Miyan Williams, the top 2 backs. They lead this unit as the number 1 running back unit via or per Athlon Sports College Football Preview Magazine in the preseason. In the nation, the Buckeyes lead the conference, but how do they stack up against other running back units in college football? Go 5 through 1 again because these guys are so talented. They're going to be in the top 5. Number 5, Wisconsin. Braylon Allen, Ches Malusi lead that unit. Number 4, Georgia Bulldogs. Kenny McIntosh and Kendall Milton lead that rushing attack. Alabama at number 3. Now, I think some of you guys may have been a little curious about this one because we talked about Jahmyr Gibbs previously and discussed how he is going to be in there running to win the Heisman Trophy. Alabama's offensive line, I still think, is going to be a question mark for that team. Brian Robinson did okay last year, did a decent job last year. Jahmyr Gibbs is going from Georgia Tech to Alabama, and I don't blame him at all. Makes a whole lot of sense. But is he going to be someone that can be in the Heisman conversation all year long? The offensive line has to help him. And according to Athlon Sports, this unit is one of the best in the country at number 3. Number 2, y'all not going to like this at all, the Ohio State Buckeyes at number 2. Number 1, it is the team that I believe has the best running back in the country, Bijan Robinson. The Texas Longhorns backing him up is Roschon Johnson. Hope I said that first name correctly. At number 1. These are rankings. These are talking points. How do I think the team should use them? The team should use this stuff. Use it as fuel. The same way you and I would. The same way you at your job, if you're in sales or if you're whatever you're marketing or whatever you do to try to attack something. If somebody says, oh, you're number 2, not number 1, use it as fuel. I mean, I remember when I sold cars. I got another car sales story for you. Talk about this, let this out, and then we'll close up shop. I remember when I was selling cars. I remember the first car that I sold. Like, hey, man, good job. Like, all right, thanks, guys. But I was cheesing from ear to ear. I was happy. They say they have a tradition to cut your tie the first time you sell a car. I said, no, absolutely not. At the time, I like to wear ties all the time, went to church all the time back then, and I was just trying to wear, I like wearing ties. I was like, nah, man, nah, you ain't touching my tie. And luckily, I still have that tie. Has a stain on it. Don't know how that got there, but they did not cut my tie. But through the time that I was selling cars, I was using other things as fuel. Somebody new comes in to compete with me to sell cars. It's competition. We go back and forth. We do that thing consistently. Yeah, they sell 2 cars. I sell 1. Okay, great. That's competition. Our sales staff would consistently have a tally of top to bottom who has sold the most cars in the entire month. We would have Saturday sales meetings before a very long day of work in selling cars. And there were numerous times I would look up there, number 3, number 5, number 4. What's going on? Like, I was never towards the bottom. Like, your boy was not that guy. Your boy could sling some cars. It would, yeah. If I wanted to go back out there right now and work those hours again, I could do it and be okay. It was a very stressful job, but I would be okay financially doing that very thing. But it always fueled me whenever I saw somebody that was not as good as me had sold as many cars as me, or maybe one more to a certain point in that month. Use it as fuel. And I had to. Man, I had to use it as fuel. Sorry, alarm clock. It's that time of day. I had to use it as fuel. I absolutely had to. Because if I didn't use it as fuel, we would have problems. I wouldn't be able to hit my personal quota, wouldn't be able to hit my financial goals for the month, and I'd be beating myself up for not doing that. So these players, I know for a fact, they look out, they might not read preview magazines, because I would not advise anybody to read a preview magazine if I was playing college football, but I'm sure they hear and listen to things, they read things. Use all this stuff as fuel. If somebody thinks you guys are the second running back unit in the country, show them all year long, from start to finish, that you are the best unit in the country. This is a preview magazine, previewing what's going to happen in the fall. When it's go time, prove that you are the best. Use this ranking as fuel. Thank you guys so much for listening to another episode of Locked on Buckeyes. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at jstevens07. You can send all of your emails to jstevens317 at gmail.com. Thank you for making Locked on Buckeyes your first listen every day. Now make your second listen the Locked on NBA Big Board podcast. Rafael Barlow, Richard Stamen, Sam Ferris, and Leif Thulin give fans an in-depth look into the biggest prospects, the latest player rankings, and of course, big boards. Follow the Locked On NBA Big Board every day on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your fine podcast.